Hello and welcome to Game Brain, a board gaming podcast about our gaming group. I'm Ben Mandelker. I'm here with Trey Alsop and also someone who is at the core of a raging controversy within our Game Brain community, Paul Tatachit. Hi, Trey and Paul. How are you guys doing?
Hey, yo.
I'm doing great. I'm just feeling the gravitational pull of the
gravitational
ethical,
pull.
The
Yes.
gravitational pull.
What they call me is he who should not be ethical.
Ethically
the
challenged.
ethical black hole that's at the center of our gaming galaxy.
Our
Bending light around it.
our podcast back in OG times of this podcast, we really leaned into this idea of Trey is the game. What were you? The game designer.
Designer, yeah.
Paul's the game breaker. I was the opinionated gamer, which I think is kind of redundant because we all are opinionated. I think we just couldn't. I think now I don't know what my name would be now. I think I maybe have more of an identity now than I did originally. But I think it's safe to say that Paul is no longer the game breaker. He is now the ethics breaker.
We kind of confirmed that last night.
We confirmed it. Yeah. So the for those who don't know, on the last episode, Jordan talked about our
great rise and fall.
Our great rise and fall of Twilight Imperium. We had a session 2 weeks ago. Jordan talked about it, and then a discussion about that session, or more rather, discussion about Jordan's story. What became the thing on Discord for the past week and a half. It's been nonstop.
It's been a healthy discussion,
which I think has been great.
Yeah, no,
I think it's great. I love to see people talking and engaging and going back and forth. And it actually has not been nasty.
No,
by the way, shout out to people being normal. I'm sure it hasn't been fun for Jordan necessarily because he's been on defense the whole time. But it's it hasn't really gotten.
But he's in there. He's throwing some punches.
He's a lawyer, He's he's defending his client, which happens to be himself.
Yes.
But he is throwing some punches. But that's Jordan. Jordan can. That's
Jordan's got Jordan.
He likes to do it. We always say Jordan's a killer.
Yeah.
He goes in, so he's going to do it.
Yeah.
But we're going to talk about that game some more. Originally, we weren't going to. Of course, we have to because Paul is here. No one has heard from Paul, at least publicly. So now we're going to hear from Paul.
Did you weigh in on the Discord?
I did not.
Not weigh in.
Right. You stayed above the fray.
I wouldn't say above.
Okay. Right.
He stayed out. But today though,
What's our subject today?
That's what I'm going to talk about.
Okay.
Today we're going to talk actually about enthusiasm and the game table. What sort of enthusiasm are you obligated to bring to a game session, or you not obligated to bring? What's fair? What's reasonable to expect out of enthusiasm, et cetera, et cetera. We're just going to explore that as it relates to playing games, because I think it's something. I
assume I'm here kind of as a cautionary tale with regards to
I'm not sure.
Right?
I'm not sure.
This is an elbow-heavy episode already.
Self-elbows.
I don't know. Self-elbowization.
My elbows are.
Thank you,
my
Ben,
seat
for sticking up
for
me.
now.
But I will not stick up for myself.
So obviously we're also gonna talk about some recent gameplays.
Yeah.
And before we even touch on TI4, because there are some people who probably are I don't want to hear about TI4 right away. Let's talk about our most recent gameplay, as in 15 minutes ago. 15 minutes ago. Well,
no. Okay, yeah.
15 minutes ago. Well, the other I will tease when we talk about Twilight Imperium. Trey played his first game of it last night.
Yeah. No.
So we're going to hear Trey's impressions.
Of 4th edition, yeah.
4th edition, sorry. 4th edition. But first, Trey, we just hot off the presses played a game that you have championed here on this podcast. It's not called KCaloria.
I've always been calling it KCaloria because that's how it's spelled, but it's just Caloria.
Caloria.
Anyway, yeah, finally I got the copy today in the mail. I saw that they're at Essen right now. Is this
wow? Essen, this is Essen weekend.
Yeah,
it's happening.
It's happening right now. So this is Matthias Bowman. This is a Texas designer who is self-published. And it's a game I played at BGG-Con last year, and I thought it was really cute, really smart design. And we got our first play of it here. And the concept is we are creating ecosystems in which we have and the cool thing about this game is you buy a set of the game, which comes in this hexagonal shaped cylinder, and you need one for every player. which
Yeah.
sounds annoying, but it's only like $20 per player.
It's like an
It's
LCG.
kind of cool, actually. I think that like it also means that you can mix and match your biomes, and you can also
I said,
like scale it as you want.
Right now, they have a couple different biomes. They have the East Texas piney woods, and then they have like a Mexican cloud forest biome, whatever. And you can mix and match them as you play, but you're playing as a particular biome. And then it's this cool little game where you start with water, and then you place another tile that's like, okay, so I'm going to build some plants that are going to be based upon that water. And then once I have plants, then I can have insects to start to feed off the plants. And then once I have insects, and so you're like starting to lay this ecosystem that's all kind of like depending on itself as you get to kind of like higher up the food chain, which are worth more points at the end of the game. And we just had our first play of that.
Yeah, it's weirdly enough, it's kind of like the nature version of Suburbia. The game Suburbia.
Yeah.
Suburbia is a game where you put hexes on it. You know, you build out your neighborhood with hexes. Oh, and if you put a residential neighborhood next to a dump, you're gonna lose some income. And if you put the dump next to a school, your children will be unhappy. If you put the school next to a park, then this will happen. And so it sort of has that vibe. You know, what animals you put next to what animals, they're gonna thrive or not thrive. But it has an added element of like the animals also generate resources, and so it also reminds me.
Well, generally the things are the resources. The reptiles will eat the bugs,
right?
The carnivores will eat the reptiles, you know, like or something like that. It goes up the chain.
Did you ever play Among the Stars or Fields of Green? Do you know what these games are?
I do. They sound familiar, but I don't think I've played.
Fields of Green is kind of like a revamp of Among the Stars. And I was immediately thinking about Fields of Green also with this game. Fields of Green is that you make a farm. And it's a modern farm. Side note, why do we not have more modern farming games? Why do they all take place in like 1630? Like, why can't we have one that takes place in like 1975, like this game where you have tractors,
corporations,
but it's like fun,
federal subsidies.
But it's kind of it's the Monsanto
monocultures.
That's where I was looking for Monsanto.
Pesticides,
Why
nitrogen.
can't we see their perspective for once? Okay, big corn.
It's true,
but it is fun.
Got to stop censoring these corporations in their speech.
It's fun when you see like an actual barn that has electricity and tractors. Like, we need more tractors in our games. Anyway, that's another game where as you build out your farm, like you have to put out a water tower, and then you have water droplets on it, and then as you put out your chickens, the chickens draw from the water resources, and then so this game kind of has that vibe. As you build your tiles, cubes accumulate on them, and then other tiles need those cubes in order to be placed.
And you're also and you're building these out. We are playing at the same time, so there can be a little bit of offense where you start to feed off of other people's biomes. You can have invasive species, certain things that can start to cause ecosystem collapse. We didn't get too heavily into our first play
because someone rushed it.
Paul rushed it and won the game with his racing humans strategy.
They were literally
parasite.
racing. They were actually having like a 3-legged race.
The ultimate invasive species.
The ultimate invasive species, humans. But I think it was a solid first play. We struggled. There's a lot of iconography that was a little surprising because it had a certain simplicity and elegance to how it was working. But I think they really dialed into the specifics of what different species need and the effect of pesticides. And it did mean that we were going to the player aid a lot to kind of figure out the iconography.
I feel like you're being very diplomatic. This, like, the production is very well meaning and looks very cute, but it's a disaster to me.
Okay.
And here's why. It doesn't look like a disaster at first. It actually looks fantastic. It has some really cool elements, like you use the actual box to like figure out like spatial things. I think maybe in the well-intended pursuit of being more eco-friendly, or maybe it's just to keep costs down, there is no physical rule book and there's no player aid. And so what this means is every time you look at a tile, you are going onto your phone and you are looking through a non-web friendly rulebook. It's a PDF that you have to zoom in with your fingers and zoom out, and you're scrolling up and down, up and down, up and down. What does this icon mean? Zoom in, look to the right because I can only get one half the page. Back, left and right, left, right, up and down, up and down. What is that? So it's already kind of like, if you had a player aid, it could already be like a little annoying, not the end of the world, like, because we've seen stuff like this before. But my experience with the game was, I actually really enjoyed the game, but it was totally overshadowed that I felt like I was looking through Yelp reviews. Not in a sense, like, when you're looking for like, what is this? Is this restaurant have a line? Let me look through the Yelp reviews to see if people are saying it has a line, and you're scrolling, trying to figure out to find the keyword. I was going nuts trying to figure out these icons. And I think it's a tragedy because this game could really sing if it got out of its own way.
Hold on.
Okay.
Let me push back a little bit here.
That was my elbow.
Step one.
Okay.
Self-published. Okay. It's not
Fair.
like this game came out from Stonemaier. Okay. They're still kind of like getting off the ground. I think they're also going to do different sets. So I think they want to remain flexible by having the rules online. That's a poor excuse. Let's print out the damn rules next time. Let's print out that PDF. I'll print it out for the set. I think also,
so this is a Trey.
I thought this game was simple enough
Yeah.
that I didn't have to like actually play it myself solo in order to teach it. That was a mistake. So we did not get the good Matt Robinson, Ben Mendelker teach at the beginning here. We were struggling a little bit. I was looking at my phone for
By the
like,
way,
wait, how
let
do
me
we
just
do
say,
this?
I just came in really hot on this. I don't know why I came in so hot. Maybe I just have some pent up like stuff going on. I don't know. I don't know where that came from. I'm gonna pull back. I will revise and say it was annoying. That stuff was annoying, but the game I thought was very fun.
Yeah. The game is charming. I think
It was a fun puzzle.
Yeah.
I think it was. I actually felt it was the sort of thematic that I enjoyed, where I was like, I actually felt like I had a biome.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I was like, okay, my fungi are here. I had a wonderful biome where it was people eating frogs and fungi, and like it was just, it was like I felt like I was like, okay, the river's here, and this creates the fungi, and this creates the frogs, and now my people have moved in. Felt right.
And all of a sudden, the moon came up, and you were nocturnal, and there
I
were
had
nocturnal
a moon.
hunters. It was all nice little narrative for your.
But what I was shocked at, I had forgotten that the end game trigger was to have 2 human tiles on there, which you got, and I have to say, I had no idea what you guys were doing. But that's not. I'm not saying the game's not interactive. It's just that my biome was never connected, and I was so focused on getting my placement right of my tiles that way I could get more humans on there that I completely did overlook the fact that I was in a race with Paul, and so I think with further plays you would have more.
I was
awareness.
shocked when the game ended.
Yeah,
I thought we had a lot more game.
yeah.
I got dealt like a bunch of humans in the very beginning.
I had 3 humans in my hand. I just couldn't set them
but
up.
again, I think we just pulled we did not do an adequate shuffle on the tiles. That's part. So we had some real clustering. I think.
Yeah, well, with my issue was that I had humans, but I needed to get either insects or this, or I needed to get more stuff in my food chain going to sustain my humans, and I couldn't. And so I was just sitting there, and I was just pulling things, and I was putting out random frogs.
I think what it reminds me of, interestingly enough, is Roads and Boats. Because you start in a little place of your own, and then you slowly move towards each other, and then you interact. Mm-hmm. And so I think maybe,
but we didn't so much.
Well, because I rushed it, but also
but we weren't even close.
Well, no, we had the invasive species.
I think I chose to build away from each other rather than us building towards.
I think we all did.
Yeah.
But you do that in Roads and Boats too. You build up your infrastructure, then you slowly bleed out. It's a way to play. I think maybe 4 away or 3 away might be better than 5 away. That's all.
Yeah, I think that the one thing that was strange to me at first, I thought once you put an animal on your food chain, it can access anything within your food chain, and so you could transfer a water cube from a river that's farther away across your food chain. And I thought that was I thought that's how that would work, or maybe that's actually how Fields of Green works, is that you can move things, but with limits, water can travel 3 tiles away. So I thought there might be something like that, which I would actually think would engender more interactivity, because if you can merge your biomes, suddenly I can pull from deep in your biome over to me. But here it's okay, humans have to be adjacent to these kind of resources.
So they're hard to place.
They are.
Yeah, there was a lot of puzzly stuff, but I enjoyed it. I actually enjoy these animal nature games. A game that we had played last year was Inhabit the Earth, which is the same designer as Keyflower, and that's actually a card game where you have species and you are trying to adapt and grow and all those things, and it's a surprisingly very heavy game. You would never think it's as much of a brain burner, but it sort of has that same feeling of I care about how the species grows. I mentioned recently I backed a Kickstarter game called We All Take from the River.
Yeah,
and
I'm curious to play that one.
Yeah, it's sort of the same thing about like an ecosystem. I think I really enjoy an ecosystem in the game, whether it's nature or humans, you know.
And this has a little bit, it's not as impressive as Rise and Fall, but the table, like you said, you look at your little biome, your ecosystem that you created as you go, and like you do feel some ownership, and it looks cool, and it kind of makes sense too.
Yeah.
Like you do end up with this, you know, the table looks cool.
If you look at a picture of it, it looks like a pure abstract game. It looks like Hive. But when in playing it, I was actually surprised in that like the abstraction melted away and I felt like I had an actual biome. Like I felt like I saw terrain. Like my mind was filling in the gaps of the abstraction there, which I thought was very cool. You know, speaking of other animal games, I recently talked about this game, and then the two of you guys got to play it, and we played with
The three of us.
Yeah. It was the three of us. We got to play this with Mike.
Yeah.
We played Zoo Tycoon about a week ago. I am still like figuring this game out. That was my second play. What did you guys think about Zoo Tycoon? Another animal-oriented game. Paul, what did you think?
I come to realize that I am not a fan of zoo-themed games
Because you're an ethical person.
Well, no,
zoos are
like it's like Animal Jail.
animal jail.
It is yes.
And so like for whatever reason I go like, oh, I don't feel my grandmother used to take me to the Washington D.C. zoo like when we were kids, and we used to see like the pandas, like, you know, blah blah blah, and I'm looking for that feeling when I play a zoo game. When I played like Ark Nova, for example, is that right? Is that
The feeling of seeing a panda.
The feeling of the zoo, like Ark Nova did not feel like a zoo game to me. It felt like something else. It felt burdensome to me. Whereas when I was playing this game, despite its fiddliness, like I go like, oh, I have the same delight that I had like going to the zoo with my grandmother. Mm-hmm. So I thought for all of it, it was successful. Like it is fiddly in the same way that I guess like On Mars seems like really fiddly in a way that I go like, does it really need to be this hard?
Yes.
But that said, like, you know, for whatever, it could be that the pictures of the animals are bigger and it's a square instead of like these hexes, and you feel like you're making your zoo.
The zoo looks more like a zoo.
Yeah.
The zoo is more zooey.
Yeah,
Because you especially had like an actual zoo with what animals that you would expect to see in a zoo.
Yeah.
Whereas I had like a weird bird cage.
No. I had my zoo, if you remember correctly, was like raccoons.
That's right.
and
It was,
raccoons, a skunk, and like 2 elk.
it was an Appalachian healing.
Mine was like the rural zoo.
Yeah.
Like, you know, when you go to a small town, they're like, come see the
That's right.
the
It's
elk
Appalachian,
on the
like, petting zoo.
It's
That's
like
what you
mine
had.
was like Joe Exotic, and except it was like the less exotic Joe Exotic, and it's just like a local zoo with the raccoons.
like mine had the snow leopards, and then we imported the lions, and then we
You had giraffes too, right?
yeah, and then we finally got the panda.
Yeah, but
Like,
we ended. I think
we ended the game.
we actually ended the game with you acquiring the panda.
Yeah. So like, I don't feel like I'm a person who really enjoys the like, oh, here's my little biome, here's my Agricola farm. Like, I don't think I'm as wooed by that. But when I was doing the zoo, it's like, oh, look, there's a little path to go to the restaurant. And I was going like, oh,
Yeah, you had a cafe.
Like, so I don't.
I had a
think-
cafe.
Yeah.
Like I had like a cafe next to my raccoon cage.
Like it does feel. I felt like one, and I don't really drink, but it feels like it's a long game that I could be hanging out with friends and drinking and playing. That's how I felt.
What about
Pretty
you?
complex for that.
It is. That's the problem. Well, Trey, what did you think about it?
I'm pretty down on it. Honestly, like I thought the best thing is we kind of end up with zoos that look like zoos. I think I was also kind of like playing it wrong, but it did feel like a port of a video game.
Yeah.
The interaction that was there did not feel like it was actually like interesting interaction a lot of times, and there was also just a lot of stuff that like I'm gonna be me. There's some randomness to this game that just kind of makes my eyes roll. Like, this is one of those games that has an event deck, and the event flips, and maybe it hurt you, maybe it helped you. Could you do anything about it? No. So like, it's just throw in little and it might affect some people differently than others, and like, hey, that's just Zoo Tycoon.
Life in the zoo biz.
One thing that was interesting was the idea of, we're kind of adding animals to our zoo, but they're coming from this community of zoos. So like there's certain animals that are available. That's really important, especially in the beginning turn or whatever. And I spent way too much time worrying about like getting breeding pairs, which actually is not even that important.
Breeding
at all. In fact, it may actually even be a problem, when you when you start breeding things.
You actually don't want to have a lot of
You actually don't want to have it.
babies.
Whereas I was thinking like, I can make more animals, then I can trade with other zoos. And like, that's not even how it worked.
Yeah.
But like, I was doing this weird bird strategy where I was trying to get advanced birds.
Well, you do have
pretty
some sort
early.
of bird on your Facebook that you've been like holding in
we
your
have
hand.
we have a new bird. Yeah.
Is that a bird? Is that a bird in
Yeah, adopted
nature?
them.
Or did you buy it from pets? Like not pets, but like was it a bird that like came in that you rescued and then you?
It is a wild bird that landed on my shoulder while I was hiking. Now that's not something that wild birds generally do.
Wow.
So we don't know, like, was this
Trained.
was this raised by a human briefly and it got out? But it's a finch. It's a lesser goldfinch that totally appear in the hills there. So like maybe it just was so hungry that was willing to hang out with humans. But
You could be on the dodo. This is like, about the dodo? This Instagram account that's like all these sort of like adorable stories of like, like my dog loves my turtle and my turtle thinks it's a dog, and you see the dog and the turtle playing and it gets like 5 million views.
Like,
I'm just saying you could be
I have been doing
internet
little
sense.
bird bath content.
Your bird bath content is fantastic.
Okay.
I love it. Trey does like slow-mo. His little wild
Jenny
bird.
deserves all the credit here. Jenny's my girlfriend, and she did the original slow-mo bird bathing in a half-inch deep cup underneath the, little trickle underneath the faucet, and the bird's just going crazy.
Does the bird live in your house now? Because I thought I saw a cage, right? Like it has a little cage, a little home.
Absolutely.
By cage, I mean a bedroom. It has
Originally,
a bedroom.
we were just planning to rescue this bird,
zoo room.
and we were kind of informed that like the bird rescues would just make sure it's healthy and then release it in the wild. And like I'm not convinced this bird would now survive in the wild. It's like it's too human friendly, so I don't know. So we're keeping it.
And have we named it?
We are really struggling to come up with a good name.
I have an idea.
Okay,
Dimitri.
Dimitri.
I love it.
Jenny's going to veto that. We considered Miss Pac-Man. That was kind of a runner for a while because the bird does love to eat the dots.
Okay.
It's eating every dot. And so,
I think
and fruit. It chases fruit around, kind of like Miss Pac-Man.
I feel like we just skipped something that I like. Ben, has a bird just ever adopted you and landed on your shoulder and go like, "Oh, you're mine now"? Has that ever happened? Because
No, I've not been the beneficiary of some sort of like symbolic moment from the universe. I have not like been like the basis of what would be like a self-help book, like the bird that landed on my shoulder.
What does it mean if like a bird comes to you and go like, "You are the one"? Like what the hell is that?
You can't ignore that and just say,
I know.
You can't just brush it off your shoulder and say, "Good luck, bird."
It's so interesting.
No, that feels like it's some sort of like biblical. It feels like it's one of those things like, you would write a book about it and then the book would have like a limited release and then someone would be held up at gunpoint by someone and they say, "Wait, before you shoot me, read this book about the bird." And they read it. It changes their life. They hug. It becomes a story. Oprah picks it up and now the book is huge.
Yeah, this intro Oprah.
Yes, I'm just letting you know you do have a few paths here. So Zoo Tycoon.
Anyway, I was working towards the advanced birds, like this bird that required that you have 3 other birds in your zoo.
Yes.
And I had achieved that. But you're still subject to like the whim of the market, which is available. It's like at the beginning of the turn, like you don't even see it coming. It's going to be like, okay, what's out there? And it turns out like for the next 2 turns, the birds that I'm looking to like add to my zoo, with my whole bird strategy, just don't become available. For 2 turns. Since that felt like I had no agency. In that at all. It seemed like you were the only person who kind of built towards a specific like it has kind of Arc Nova style. If you have these 4 species, you qualify for a big jump in conservation, which helped you out.
Well, it's like if you get like these species, then if you're the first one to collect this set of species, you're going to get conservation points from this conservation program because you have basically assembled. I had naturally I had a skunk, an elk, and a raccoon. So the powers that be are like, this person is saving. This person's saving the globe.
You sound like you're making like stew.
I had something else. No, I had like a bear. So
Everyone
just settled down.
Stew. That's right.
Everyone settled down. Well, I did have one like big ticket item, but I know what you're saying. I feel like for me, those elements didn't bother me that much because I always took it as like, okay, the animal that I want is not available now, so I will use this time to now focus on a different animal or something like that. But I know what you meant. I think the first time I played it, that happened to me, and I was like, I can't get another giraffe or something like that. I think I like the game. I think it is a flawed game, but I feel like I can sense something under the hood where I want to explore it a little bit more. Because when I did have my first play of it, a 2-player game, what I did discover was that the interaction did sort of grow a bit. Like I was very concerned with lots of races. The game is really about races. That's the interaction, like keeping up with other people. And I was a bit more invested. It's a long teach, and I went extra slow to make sure everyone at the table was picking up all the details. But I do feel like once you get once you do get the stuff, it's actually it comes together pretty easily. Like, oh, well, this animal needs this amount of empty space in its enclosure.
It's just different rhythm.
It's just got a weird rhythm. It is fiddly. I feel like if I'm going to play it again, I think rather than teach everything up front, I think we just do a sample round, almost like a video game tutorial. Treat it like a video game, I guess, and just be like, let's go through this round and we scrap it.
I wanted to quit and restart. If it were a video game, I would be like, you know what? Now I know.
I think that's the healthy way to do it.
I built 2 cages in my first turn. Shouldn't have done that. I need to have a new animal every single year because I need to market around it. There's this whole boost mechanism. Like you have to be released. You have to be doing new stuff every year. And I was really concentrated on breeding, and that actually is a bad thing. Like you don't even care about that at all.
I feel like it's like you do just a sample round because it's just
and also, like having a lot of animals of a certain type is like not especially good either.
But
sometimes you have to it's
like you need it because to get the higher level animals, you need all your animals to be happy, and so animals can only be happy if there's a certain party size.
Yeah, there's actually it can get pretty granular in a way that's interesting, where you look at a certain species and they're saying like this species isn't going to be happy until you have 5 of them,
right?
And they need a couple of enclosures, and so like it becomes this puzzle of like how can I put together a situation where my animals are going to be happy, and every species has different needs.
Yeah, and I agree with the event deck does feel like extraneous. However, I can also see if you don't have the event deck, you play and you're like, okay, well, I always know I'm going to go for this species first to this species to this species. So it keeps it so that way you can't always do the same thing. I think that they do say for your first game or so, you don't even have to don't even bother with the event deck, which maybe is also a good way to go. But I think I think like what Paul said is what resonates with me with the game is that it feels like a true zoo game in a way that Ark Nova doesn't. Ark Nova is arguably a better game, like in terms of like the game mechanics and how the puzzle of that game works. It is just a better game, but I feel like with Ark Nova, the zoo is a theme, but it's a setting, but like as you build your zoo in Ark Nova, you put hexes on a map and you get bonuses. And then those hexes, once those
in the end, you have these enclosures.
Yes.
As opposed to looking over, like at Paul's zoo, I remember looked great.
Yeah.
I looked across the table and I'm like, there's giraffes and lions. Stuff is like, that looks like a zoo. And they're beautiful little wooden pieces. Like, that's kind of what you would like in Ark Nova, is to actually see the animals in your zoo instead of it just being a card that you've stacked up.
Right. Like on Ark Nova, like once you fill an enclosure, let's say you have an animal that requires an enclosure size 2, you put a 2 size thing on your board and you turn it over. And later in the game, you decide to let it free with conservation. You just turn over a different enclosure. It doesn't matter because it's not a real zoo. It's a puzzle. It's not a zoo. Whereas here, it's like, it feels like a zoo. Like it matters. Like they actually put a huge amount of care into the operation of like what does it take to house animals? Like there, you have to consider the mix of the genders. You have to consider the biome. You consider like, do I need places for them to sleep? I need places that like a kiosk for people to learn about them. I need to have this and that. Like, it's super, super granular, and that I really enjoy that part. But I think I agree the game itself is like wonky. That being said, I did back the expansion before I played the original, which I don't know if I would have backed the expansion, but apparently the expansion
cleans up a little bit.
I think it cleans up a lot of things, and it adds a million more animals. So I don't know. We'll see how that goes.
I think of it of like hospitals. I feel like Ark Nova is like you're playing like animal administrator, like hospital administrator versus doctors. Whereas like Zoo Tycoon, you feel like you're in the hospital as opposed to you're making the hospital run in a way.
Right.
So it's a focus of where you're at. So
it's like ER versus House MD.
So has Ark Nova bounced off the two of you?
No, I like it. I own it.
Yeah,
but it doesn't.
I'm not a big Ark Nova fan because I don't feel like I feel like the theme is pasted on in a way that like
I don't agree with that.
I understand. It's okay.
I understand. Like I kind of too would like the wooden figures on it there, but like it actually does an impressive amount of the different things it's doing. It's not just animals in enclosures.
100%.
Yes.
This is the thing. Like,
you have these relationships with other zoos, and
but like you don't have
research,
right? But you don't have like the
Zoo Tycoon. Frankly, relies on a similar thing of like you have appeal and you also have conservation, and these two things are interacting because your score in Zoo Tycoon is the lower of the two values, right? So if you go high appeal but you never do your conservation, you won't score well. That's really kind of the same things that Ark Nova.
To be clear, I think Ark Nova is a well-designed game. It's a great game.
Yeah,
like I just don't like it.
You're right.
I think it is a great game, and whenever I play it, I'm like, this game is really good. The first time I played it, I bounced off of it a little bit. I will say though that it doesn't really stick in my brain, so I don't often think about it. I own it. I never think, oh God, we should play Ark Nova. But when I do play it, I'm like, this game is really good. I think Zoo Tycoon is an inferior game. I don't think there's any question about that. I think it is fiddly. I think it is clunky, and I think it is
a long teach for what it was.
Long teach, and I think it's non-intuitive. But I actually think it has something oddly special about it.
It makes me smile.
Okay, so what's
delight.
the oddly
the
special?
delight?
Okay.
Is what Paul said. I think it has a delight. It's like it has a play to it. Like you're building your zoo. Like you've got your raccoons, you got your giraffes. I think that's actually the puzzle of the zoo. Once you get over the hump of the rules and you sort of like start to sort of internalize the flow, I think the puzzle of the zoo is really good. And one thing we didn't get to in our game, we had to abort the game, is that you really run out of space on your board. And as you start to run out of space, the walls close in on the game, and that adds like some tension that doesn't, in the beginning, it doesn't feel like there's much tension, but it closes in on itself in a way that I like. And there are people online who have written some really positive reviews about the game, talking about like the emergent strategy and nuances that makes me intrigued to want to explore it. But I think it's a hard game to
I
get
saw
to the
some
table.
of those things are saying that there's a lot of hidden depths.
Yes.
Now it is complicated. Like it's true that it is complicated. I'm not. I don't.
Complicated. You're maybe thinking maybe it's complicated just to, and that's all it is.
It was a heavy rule load.
That's the problem, is that it's a game that you would want to maybe play with, if you're interested in the delight, you might want to play this with people who are there for the delight, and maybe those people are not so interested in the heavy rules. And if you play with people who are down for the heavy rules, they may want more than just the delight.
In a moment that I experienced in that game, because I found the game to be kind of like a series of frustrations. And part of it was, as I realized, like there was a lot to learn here.
Yeah.
And then like my growth in the game is like, I clearly did it wrong. So like mentally I was already like, oh, I did this wrong. I would really like to like restart and do it right, because I kind of did. And so, and then like I couldn't get the animal out. Like I had this one strategy I was building towards, so I was frustrated about that. I was frustrated by the event deck kind of kicking me in the nads a couple of times just randomly. And also it was like, I felt like I was zagging where I was going heavier into conservation than other people were. And then you picked up like your reward for having a raccoon, a rat, and a, and a barnyard
and
cat.
like a rabid skunk.
And suddenly like you jumped up the conservation track, and like here was one of the few areas of interaction was like whoever's leading at conservation is going to get an additional tile for their zoo, that's going to help. And I was kind of like, okay, well, I'm not even like playing to win, but like the one thing I was doing well at, Ben just jumped me on that because he got this kind of the first to get to this achievable goal, and once you get there, other people can't do it.
No, you just get just less points.
Gets less points, and so to me, it was kind of like a series of frustration. So anyway, I just didn't experience the delight.
Yeah,
there was no delight for me.
Sad zoo.
It was
sad
kind of
bird
a sad
jail.
and also like and it was also like and it was taking a really long time, and we didn't even finish. So there's part of me that's kind of saying like these comparisons to Ark Nova feel other than it's about zoos, like
it's not
one
really
of these Ark Nova is arguably a top 20 game that's already in its short life has already steady.
It's like a
well
essential
established
for many people.
Whereas I think I'm probably one and done on Zoo Tycoon. It would be hard for me to give it another
I would never
chance
say to you, Trey, no, there's actually more to the game. I feel like with Zoo Tycoon is one of those games where I'm like, I get it. I can't imagine really playing it with anyone in our group except for Paul. I think that like
because it was unpleasant to play with me.
No, because I see the things that drive you nuts about it.
The things are there. That
I think for Jordan and for Tom, not enough interaction.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's the sort of game that Matt is interested in playing right now. He said so much.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's honestly going to be too much for Dimitri. I think that like Mike seemed like
just in terms of like rule load,
rule load.
Yeah,
and I think that Mike actually seemed to be enjoying the delight of it, but I think he was struggling. It was just too much for him.
It's a tough teach.
David Gillison maybe, but again, it's the rules thing, and you've got to. I don't know. What I'm trying to say is that Paul, with his lack of ethics, really he surprisingly
excels at exploiting
excelled
animals.
at exploiting animals.
It reminds me of how you approach 18xx too. Like you play 18xx with people who I go like you're gonna put them through that, and you go like it's casual 18xx.
Yeah,
and I approach it that way. It could literally have gone the other way where I could have run into the walls that you did. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just been like, like it was luck that I didn't hit the same wall.
You had you by the way, you have beautiful giraffes, but I would also like to mention your zoo I feel like was under financial duress, and my zoo with its adorable collection of raccoons was killing it money wise. I just want to point that out to everyone.
You had a high income.
I had highest income.
He actually had high income. I was doing low income.
I think this is
low income, high conversation.
I had no my conservation was 0.
Oh, that's what it was.
Like I was,
so when we ended it, you were technically losing.
I was losing.
You were like you're like one of those like elephant circuses in Phuket where it's like, look at us, and you're like, they're treating your elephant so badly.
A lot of popcorn.
Oh yeah, this was rough. And my only thing was I will get 10 conservation when I get the alliance thing, whatever.
Yeah, there's some of these.
Yeah.
And that's another thing, like those don't change in the game. Mm-hmm. Like that's one of the things about playing Ark Nova is like in different games we're pursuing different kind of end goals where we can go towards these certain things, and it's the exact same every single time you play Zoo Tycoon.
Yeah. Well, Paul, we should play some 2 players of that and see if we find some emergent whatever,
find some more delight.
And then see we can report back. I think that probably I will. I don't think I'm going to try to foist it on anyone else in this group. Sure. I think it's just going to be a recipe for failure. Anyway, speaking of
failures,
speaking of games that, wondering whether or not they're going to work with certain people. Last night, I decided to host Newbie TI4 because after the last session generated so much intrigue. Well, should we talk about last night's session, or should we ask Paul about the big controversy first? Which one should we do first? Which one should we talk about?
I think newbies first.
Newbies.
Right, you'd had a real game of TI4 with players who understood the rules and played competitively, and it ended. and there was a winner and there was a controversy. Last night, you explicitly had a newbie game to expand the circle of people that could play. We started at 6 o'clock on a Friday with the understanding that we were never going to finish this game.
Exactly. Well, really what happened was there were a lot of people, especially the people are curious, and especially after the last game, I think curiosity was even higher. We always kind of talked, you and I, Trey, about like, maybe you'll try it, maybe you'll like it, maybe not, whatever. Mike expressed that he really wanted to play. I don't know if Dimitri ever wanted to play this, but I know he likes to. He likes to be included. He likes to be included. So it's true. So and then my friend Matt Corluca, he has wanted to play. He's just great. Yeah. So and in fact, his baby was due last night, and he was like, I don't think I can make it, but his wife was like, go and
get out of the house.
We'll let if a baby shows up, I'll let you know. So
comes home like, here it is.
Yeah. So the plan was get to my place at 6 p.m. sharp. This is like Gremlins. Okay, there are 3 rules. Get there on time, watch the video, and have a
don't eat at the
don't
table.
eat by the table.
And don't eat by the table. Otherwise, I'm gonna turn into the gremlin, and I'm gonna drive a little car around your feet and annoy you. So Mike shows up at like 6:45.
Rule 1.
Rule 1. Actually, though, I think it was a blessing in disguise, even though it delayed us, because, side note, we played a party game called 3 of a Kind, and it was funny. It was a fun game. It's just, the game is literally...
It set a good tone.
It's a trifle. Yes.
It's a trifle. You pull up a card that's a category that says, like, modes of transportation, or what did we have?
Island.
Something you find on a desert island.
Hardest.
So then you pull 3 adjectives or superlatives. Hardest, sweetest, and
like
most
calm.
relaxing.
Yeah,
Most
exactly.
relaxing.
And then we all write down our answers for those things, and you just try to match with people. That's all it is. But it's
reverse
funny.
just one.
Yeah, it's
And
reverse just one.
Yeah, the first round was like, that was cute. And I found like every subsequent round got funnier and funnier.
As
And
the insults started flying.
but also it's kind of like the excitement of matching with someone. It was good. But it did set like a very convivial
Yeah,
tone.
well, definitely looking forward to playing that again. And that's also one of those ones where like we can play a few rounds
and then just stop.
and just stop. Like, who cares about points?
Yeah, so it actually was a really good like tone establisher. It's like funny, fun. We're all in this together.
But I won that game.
Paul won it.
That's important that you got that in, Paul.
So then at 6:45, the plan was I was going to do kind of like an overview, fill in the gaps. Dimitri, despite having a week to watch the movie, not the movie, the video, did not watch it. So I had to do a full teach of TI4. If it sounds like I'm being passive aggressive, it's because I am.
No, not the first word. Just aggressive. Just the aggressive.
I am publicly shaming him. But I think it was actually important.
You
it was
should have
good.
known better. But
I honestly suspected he was never going to watch the video, and I give him a pass on this occasion. And I think it was good. I think it was good to do that full teach.
we did not end up waiting for him. Like, once we were playing, he played quickly because he
100%. There were things that he got confused about, but I think that was reasonable. It was a reasonable confusion about certain things. But so then we did a full teach. I took my time with it. I wanted to make sure everyone could really understand what was going on. And I think that the fact that we knew we had no plans to finish it, it sort of took the panic out of it. It was like, look, this is like a seminar or something like that. So the full teach.
that was a little bit rough just because, like, I think Mike and I had watched the video. I'd watched a few videos.
Oh yeah, probably for you guys it was probably frustrating.
Well, but the thing was I couldn't even just like tune out either, because like I knew like 90% of it, but then there was like the 10% where I was like, oh, didn't know that one.
Yeah,
like that happened a lot.
I would say that if a host tells you to watch a video for an epic game, like, it's one thing if like there's a game and it's like Barrage or something and you haven't watched the video, it's fine. I think for a big game where you know that you're going to have a time issue, if you don't watch that video, it's a little disrespectful. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
I think that if someone gives you a week to watch something like that, like, please do your best to do that, honestly. And I am publicly admonishing Dimitri, but, we love him, Dimitri, and,
We're not surprised.
he's chuckling in his car
Also,
right
like,
now.
it's a great video, too. Like
it's friends of the podcast.
Local
Nick and
LA
Shay.
guy Shane who did it, and
Nick and Shay.
Shay, right.
Yeah, they're local. We played Successors with Shay and played TI4 many times with Nick.
just good video.
I thought, why not name drop right there? Like, yeah, I know those people. Yeah, it is a good video. That's the video you should watch for learning the game. So then we had some pizza. We set up the board. And it was honestly, like, we didn't really start playing until 9 o'clock, 9:30 or so.
Sure.
That
Honestly,
it may even been later.
And it was like about 9:30 when the board was finished.
But honestly,
It was
it was having a great time.
Yeah.
Because I felt like one thing that was happening the entire time was everyone was laughing and joking. I feel like everyone had a feeling of like, we're enjoying that we're going down this saga. I don't know, maybe that's me with rose-colored glasses as the host, being like, I put on a great event. But
It was a great event. You did put on.
but it felt like the vibe was right.
Yeah.
There
was an appropriate amount of engagement. There was an appropriate amount of like seriousness and levity.
Yes.
I think it was a good balance.
So we played until 1 a.m, which wound up being
Until 2 or
Yeah,
close.
I think it was 2.
I think it was 1:30. It was 1:30.
1:30 you kicked us out.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, you're right. 1:40. It was actually 1:40. Which actually wound up only being 2 rounds of the game.
Yep.
We did have an ice cream break. I made an ice cream cake in the shape of Mechatol Rex.
War Sun.
The War Sun. I stuck Pocky in like this bowl-shaped ice cream cake to make it look like the War Sun. It actually just kind of looked like a strange hairy zit, but
Either way.
or a sea urchin. But we got through 2 rounds. We saw the full spectrum of, I think, the things that you would encounter, which is combat, agenda phase, negotiation, et cetera, betrayal. It was these rounds were longer than usual because
First time.
We had Trey picked it up right away. I think the others still were on ramping. Trey, I think the big question mark that we all have, knowing how much you hate dice, you don't like randomness, you don't like zoos. What did you or zoo simulations apparently? What did you think about Twilight Imperium?
I still think it's not a game for me, but I had a good time. Mm-hmm. I mean, I would still, I think, occasionally do it with the right group of people, that knew how to play. It's a big ask, but I think the tough part was, besides the game itself, though, is like when you're playing a 6-person game and people are taking too long because they're struggling with the rules, like then it's hard to stay focused.
Yeah.
And in it. And we got a little bit into that last night, even though it was a teaching game. And we did that weird thing that I just don't understand. It was like, it's a teaching game. We're only going to play 2 rounds, but people were still seemed like very intent upon winning when we stopped at round 2.
Yeah.
And we're really like min-maxing to get like that little final point so that you finished 3rd. I don't understand.
I mean, I liked that people were playing like they were playing a full game. Because I feel like it gives a more authentic experience for it. But yeah, that was frustrating. And also just a pro tip to people who are new to the game. If you are interested in, like, on your turn, building a ship, for instance, or doing a technology, be definitely sure to use your downtime to consider those things, because it happened a few times where it would like come to Mike and he'd be like, I think I want to build. And he'd be like, okay, what are you going to build? He goes, To me, that is the equivalent of you're waiting in line at Starbucks for 10 minutes and the person in front of you finally gets to the counter and they say, what do you want? And they go, and they look at the menu.
Yeah.
Like, don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that. That's a newbie mistake. I get it, but like that's a tip to people who are learning.
There's a lot to grok, and I guess again, like if you've done enough of the preparation, like you've got your planets, you know how much influence you have, you know how many resources you have. Mentally, I'm allocating that. Like I got to keep this for the technology tile that I need to take. I'm saving 6 influence because I'm going to try to snag Mercantile Rex and grab that permanent 1 VP.
It's a lot
even
to
though
think
I'm not
about.
going to keep it. Blah blah blah. I got a little over the hump there.
Yeah.
So as far as the Civ game of expanding the tiles, I'm playing my particular faction, which played radically different than yours, Ben. That I was down for. That I was enjoying. It really is like some of the edges of the game and the chaos, which are probably going to drive me crazy over
especially
time.
later in the game, when the stakes
Hour
are
8.
higher.
Hour 8.
But you were killing it. I mean, you were in second place.
Well,
Right
I think I had a faction that was like did good early expansion, and then can you translate that into something later on? But the objectives were lining up nicely, where I was easily like converting one a turn.
But I didn't.
Things were achievable.
I didn't see you like. I didn't see any of your triggers being hit. Like, I think you were just like chill and laughing. My takeaway sitting next to you is like, I was like, oh, Trey is like, he's doing okay.
The only trigger was playing with Paul.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll be here all week.
By the way, I want to say also though, like, I just threw an elbow at Mike, but I want to say a reverse elbow is that like where Mike was really strong was he was like contributing such a great table presence. Like, he was laughing and he was funny and he was just having fun. And I think that maybe the reason why he wasn't he wasn't thinking ahead of his what to build is because he was paying attention. He was looking at what everyone else was doing.
Yeah.
He was engaged. Yeah. So it sounded like I was just shitting on him. I guess I was, but like but the reason why he was slow in that area was because I think he was like, wow, this is so cool what's going on. And he was talking and he was laughing, which is 100% the vibe you need to have for the game. And I felt like the vibe was really good, and it made me really happy to see you guys.
That a few times, like
Yeah,
that would be that's totally.
He was already getting stuff by the end. He was like
it's because it occupies this weird space, so I kind of understand why it has its real devotees, which is that it's a highly complex beer and pretzels game, right? Like, you can't take it too seriously. But it can be like an awesome Saturday, and there's going to be exciting stuff that happens. So, like, Paul, your theory of like it makes memories, definitely.
Like someone put it on Discord, like, it's an experience. First and foremost, it's an experience generator.
Yeah,
and I think at 12 hours, it's going to be.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
So yeah, I like it a lot.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun last night. I had a tricky faction that starts with a War Sun, but it's like I have limited resources, and on top of that, I had a really bad corner. Like, Dimitri just like put like an asteroid belt like right in front in my quote unquote slice, as they say, and he's like, oh, well, Paul said I should put it there, so I'm going to. Which I feel like he was just setting you up. He was like, I'm going to make Paul look like, I want to reinforce Paul as the unethical player, and then we spent the entire night calling Paul the unethical player,
or would you on Instagram call me the people's
the people's enemy?
Yeah, right.
I'm glad. It looked like, honestly, Trey, I think it was like, I was just happy to see that you looked like you were having a nice time, and like you didn't look like you were frustrated, and that made me just really happy.
No, I think you had prepared me to be in the right headspace, which I came in not even thinking like because I knew we weren't going to finish, but also it's like really trying really hard to win would be the wrong attitude. Like, just have fun,
roll with the punches,
play the thing, do the social game. Like, that's the space I was in, and accept the game on its own terms.
Yeah,
I don't think I'm ever going to love it, but I do hope that I'm not disqualified from the invite.
No, I think that, like, also I tried really hard to.
Tom might be disqualified from the invite.
He has crapped on it from, you know.
I mean, I would play it with Tom.
Yeah, but he
hasn't been around. He's like,
but you would also demand
cruise.
that he come into it with a certain amount of enthusiasm. Like, if he's just complaining or just making fun of it the whole
believe
time,
it or not,
I'm not saying he would.
I actually think that Tom would come in with the exact right attitude, believe it or not, because he has said, like, he shits on the game a lot, but he also will be like, well, you know, it's like, yeah, I shit on the game, but, like, you know, it's like kind of like the fun of our banter of it. I think that he would come in. I think that Tom loves like a big experience generator game, and I think he may think the game is crappy, but I think he would come in with the right vibe. You don't think so?
No.
I think
he would. I think he and I'm just speculating from my...
He's on a boat in a different continent. You can say whatever you want.
My 35 years of experience with Tom. I think he may also feel like in games like that, he gets targeted. Because you often are in the position of, I'm choosing who to mess with from the beginning, by the way, when placing the map. Hey, let me drop this supernova right in front of your home base kind of thing. I think he knows in those kind of games he can, because he has a reputation as winning a lot of games.
It's the game night. It's the game night thing.
That's an opportunity for people to come back swinging at him. And so that's not necessarily the most fun.
Yeah, but it's weird because it's interesting that you say that because I feel like in some ways he relishes that.
Yeah.
Well,
but
we seen him quit a game. Like we stopped playing Coup because people would just hammer him.
Yeah,
and eventually he would just lose.
Yeah, you could just basically fire a thing out, and we
Even
could
for
take Tom out.
Yeah,
like let's just make sure Tom's not going to win, and it would just.
But I think it brings up an interesting thing and something that I think is actually a big factor in TI4 that people don't always consider. Like we always talk about table image, but there are over the course of many hours. It's a lot of time to fill the space with tiny microaggressions. I think
we did have a lot of those.
You mentioned like last night, someone said that was a microaggression.
That was me.
And it was you.
Yeah. I accused Trey of that.
And the truth is, like, microaggressions build up and build up and build up, and then they ultimately have consequences. And so I think that, like, Tom is pretty good about a quiet little microaggression. And by the way, I am great about them. I do them all the time. But like, there's microaggression management is, I think, a very important part of it.
That is a great turn of phrase.
It's like if you're doing the microaggressions, you have to manage, I guess, maybe the way you do them or when they come out, or realize you've maybe done one too many. But like, if you don't realize you're doing microaggressions, I'm not necessarily saying Tom does this. I'm just sort of saying generally, if you're playing this game, beware, it's gonna come back to haunt you. Like in games like this,
over 12 hour at the 12-hour mark, like people have built a.
So like if you like Dimitri did a microaggression with me, he put that asteroid field right in front of me, and then he said it was because of Paul, it was like a pew pew, But I didn't take. I thought it was actually it was hilarious, and so like there was no rage because, by the way, when Dimitri put that asteroid belt tile down in front of me, he had this impish sort of grin on his face. He was almost like suppressing a laugh because he knew he was up to bullshit, and he was laughing at himself. Like, how could you really be angry in that situation? He's so amused by the chaos he's doing while simultaneously throwing Paul under the bus. It's hilarious, Either way, if Tom does that asteroid belt move, puts an asteroid belt in front of me, it's going to come off totally differently. Tom has a reputation, so if he does something like that right away, you're like, okay, based on previous experiences, him doing that, you're going to take it more as a microaggression than a fun little like aha. It's not necessarily fair to Tom, but it's a reality of how these games happen.
Yeah.
100%. Just like me, I always get targeted in social media games, not social media games.
I would say after this game, I have a better appreciation of the game. I could see like why this could be easily somebody's like, this is my game. Mm-hmm. Because you learn the system, and then there's a tremendous amount of pleasure out of playing a particular faction and then playing that faction against how it matches up against other factions because they play so differently each time.
Yeah.
And some of the stuff that I might have initially kind of rolled my eyes at the randomness of certain things, I had more appreciation for later on. So like, here's an example. Matt had a tile. Like you're given like 3 kind of like good tiles and 2 obstacle kind of tiles. That's to
set up the map.
To set up the map initially, and those 5 tiles are all you're going to place, and everybody's going to make the map. But Matt had a quote unquote good tile that had 2 what I would consider to be really excellent planets,
high value planets.
High value planets. He placed it right next to his home base, so it felt like, oh, what a huge advantage to have this great engine. I didn't see any tile like that. I kind of like.
Tell me about it, sister. My section was a wasteland, despite having a nice plan.
And that seemed like, oh, that's just really good for Matt. But what it actually put was just a giant bullseye on that sector next to the guy who has the war sun.
Started with the war sun.
Starts with a war sun. It's like, okay, I didn't realize at the time. It's like you put that there, but you're not going to keep it.
There's like a social checks and balances in this game. Is I guess what the common thread is about these things. And what I was going to say before is in social deduction games, people always think I'm bad because I love a sneaky, dramatic play, and I can't help. So that's what I work against. My reputation that I work against, and even in these games, like. People are like, oh, Ben, you're always going to do something sneaky. And I'm like, no, I'm going to do something sincere right now.
Let's be fair. You're looking for the sneaky move. Don't.
I know. I am.
So everyone's seeing everything right.
Yeah, but I own that. I own that I do that.
Right. Well, maybe not at the same time. there's often a delay. Like, for example, yesterday there was a time where like, oh, Trey, I'm going to invade you here. Don't take it personally, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, yeah.
And then you kind of realized that it wasn't going to, and then you got suddenly nice. And you like, you know what, Trey, I'm gonna be nice to you here, blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, it's revealed later you have some secret objective where, like, if you had actually invaded me there, you would not have qualified for the victory point. So what appeared to be mercy was, in fact, self-interest.
Can it be all of the above?
Yeah, but there was about a 45-minute delay.
Self-interest with a benefit of mercy for you.
We were in that moment of retrospective. It's like, of course, that was not Ben being nice. Ben was not being nice.
Actually, no. Well, what was an interesting dilemma for me is that for my larger game, it actually still made sense for me I needed to make a path to a sun. So I was going to sort of like drive through your neighborhood with my single destroyer to get to a sun.
Right.
Because my group and my faction. And so like there was part of me that said, if I do this, then I don't get my objective, but it gets me farther to the sun, which will help my larger game. So like, what do I do? So
that was your stated reason for doing things.
Yeah, that was sincere. But then once I saw that I wasn't going to get the point out of it, I was like, I'm not going to do this. Anyway, who cares about that? But the point is, yes, I was
weaseling.
I wasn't weaseling. I was more just.
Can't you be both?
I mean, weaseling is part of the game.
Well, here's the thing. I was coming into your area, but I truly wasn't going to do anything violent to you. I was just literally there on a layover. I was on a layover for one round, and I was going to keep on moving. And the game's over. So I'm not like, I secretly was going to do this. Like I truly was. Do the layover, get the point for being in the same spot as your space dock, and move on to the sun. And
if not for the fact that Trey's specific faction, would have to die. Like he couldn't stop. He couldn't park with you because like your station would just blow up.
It was a whole thing, and so I went the other way with my war son and just violated Matt Corluca with it. But anyway, yeah, no, I was. You know what it was? I was not being altruistic.
Oh, you're being sneaky.
No, because altruism is like doing something good for someone purely to being good. I was doing something good for you, but I was getting benefit out of it for sure.
He did nothing good for him.
It wasn't good for me at all.
It was neutral.
What was good for you was that I didn't destroy your space dock.
Spoken like a true TI4 player. What was good for you is that I didn't kill you.
And that like you didn't have a negative.
Every moment I don't murder you is good for you.
You didn't have a negative outcome. So now that you played it, Trey, do you have any insight on the Paul situation? And you know what? Or do you have it? I guess we should. You know what? Actually, pause on that. Paul, you have not been able to speak out about this situation. Basically, the take. And I'm going to try to
concise.
Honor what Jordan said on the podcast as accurately as possible.
Yep.
Jordan said that we had a vote, and his words were more or less like a vote. The vote goes one way, and Ben wins the game. The vote goes the other way, and the game goes on. And you said,
I had the power,
right? And you,
the only
you were the only one.
power.
I actually could throw some votes, but whatever. You said, give me to some people, to Jordan and to Josh, give me 2 points. Each of you give me a point because we have that ability to do that in game. And if you give me the point, I'm going to vote with you guys. If you don't, I'm going to vote for Ben to win the game. And they would not give you the points. And then you voted, and then I won the game. And that was
this is your version.
This is me trying to faithfully retell what Jordan said.
We should try to do that. Other than we're trying to bring people up to speed.
You continue. You're doing fine.
No, because I feel like
it's in danger of characterizing what Jordan's.
I'm just trying to do that because I feel like if I say what I said happened, it will feel like I've changed the narrative from what the initial argument.
I don't think you slanted it at all. I think you very. So yeah, I think the one other aspect that should be added is like Jordan was at 8 points, you were at 7 points, and I was at 5.
Mm-hmm.
And first to 10 wins. I think it wasn't me going like, give me 2 points and I win.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't. It was basically give me 2 points and I what you call it? I'm in the mix.
You're competitive.
Yeah, I'm not.
You have a chance, whereas previously you had no chance.
Yeah. So like I think like the real I think the real discussion is basically, was it okay that I asked that? And the secondary, and probably more importantly, was it okay that I voted for you? Like, I think, you know, I think almost universally, like everyone's got like, you could ask for that. You know? Right. Yeah, that's fine. You can ask for that. But once they say no, is it within my interest to expedite the game and just quote unquote give it to you? And I think from my perspective, like going through my head, I look at it this way. If the yes for you gives you the points immediately, I think everyone will say that like I'm king making.
Meaning like this is an immediate the game. Right. If the vote happens, the game ends at that
exactly
in that phase right there.
And if that were the case, I wouldn't do that. Like, you know, like I think that is king making in a way that is not fun. It goes against the spirit of the game. Blah 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 blah. So
it's in danger of taking your ball and going home.
Exactly. Like it's a mean thing to do, and it's because like you didn't let me win, so now you know. That said, you know, if that is the case, you should really give me the points. I mean, like this, like
so unethical.
I mean, like you should, because like if you don't, why would you do that anyway? I think the real difference.
You're dealing with a madman.
like the real difference though between my version and Jordan's version is our evaluation function. He evaluates it that like if I give you if I say yes to you, it's a certainty. It's a certainty. Whereas I go, oh well, if he doesn't give me this, all three of the other players need to really deal with Ben. I can't deal with Ben because I've been cornered in some my part.
It's not your job.
And
it's the people who are playing for the wins job.
Also, I had given you a point early in the game, and if you attacked me, you would lose a point. Yeah. You couldn't stand to lose a point.
And this is not like I'm a person who hates being manipulated poorly, but when someone does it well. Oh my God! I must praise. And Ben did this amazing thing, whereas in round 2, he gives me a point
for 3 trade goods,
for
cheap,
for effectively nothing. He gives me, and
I needed it.
And ultimately, what this does,
tempo play.
Like it curries me favor. 4 rounds before it even matters.
All these years, I thought Ben was a scumbag, but now I'm ready to ally with him.
And so he's immune to me.
I'm just going to move my ship in here just for a second.
That's right. Exactly. And so I
your entire perception of the match.
I was played 4 rounds ago. Like Ben had neutralized me immediately as a threat to him. And it was looking back, I go, holy shit. That is well played. I am really.
It's a deep cut. Yeah.
It was really good. It was really good. So I don't think that it was expressed enough.
I have to say, honestly, at the risk of self-promotion, and I'll self-promote myself here, because why not?
Yeah.
Self-promote myself, redundant. Yeah. I felt like in that last game, I was seeing the Matrix. I knew my path forward. The first round was a total bust. I messed up everything. All my sequencing, everything went wrong. But I saw my path forward. And it was like, I've never played a TI game like that before. And I neutralized, I curried his favor early on. I put ships in places, just little, one ship here, one ship there that looked like benign and whatever. But what it meant that if anyone came to try to get me when I eventually got into Mechatol Rex, they would have to first battle some random destroyer. And that means that's a whole
turn. It's a command token.
It's a giant speed bump. So I put speed bumps out that were sort of no one really saw. And I kind of I just set myself up so well. I'm not going to lie. And I was just I was so proud of myself.
No, it was a good game.
But that being said, let's not act I'm just such a good player. My biggest threat was someone who had never played before, and he built up in a giant army and was sort of turtling.
And didn't execute.
He really probably should have aggressed me at some point, and he didn't. And I benefited from that. I'm not going to act it was just I was amongst all these sharks, and I just was so good. But Given this,
But it is
given the
that
game
kind
state,
of game
I
a
did-
lot of times where the table talk where people need to be like, you need you.
Oh, that was
with
said.
the big armor. Like,
It was said.
but it wasn't said persuasively enough.
That's right.
Yeah, but this is the space. This is where TI exists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, but enough about what I was doing on my end.
So ultimately, I think the biggest disagreement between Jordan and myself is that, like, was there a possibility of Ben being stopped that round? Because, like, at round 2, it doesn't matter. Like, you know, if it goes another round, then that's another thing. But, like, in that round, and I could math out, here's how you stop him. It's not going to be great for you guys because, like, you guys will have to spend all your resources to, like, your ships against Ben, or you can give me 2 points. Like, I don't know how to say this. Like, you know, I thought I was giving a very, very fair, you know, a very, very fair deal. Like, it was not skewed in any way. No, but here's the thing.
And by the way, if they gave you points, that would mean that you would not be able to attack them.
That's right.
'Cause
Like,
then you would lose. The
they're
points that they
insulated
gave
from
you.
me too.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, and here's the thing where I sympathize for Jordan because I am a jerk.
That's true.
and so, you know, like, we don't have to, like, replay the game too much, but, like, there are these, like, steps where I feel Jordan had microaggressed me, as we were talking earlier. Like, first, it always, and this is happening with Cassie's game too. Like, the two games. First, people are very nice and go like, Paul, I'm going to move here. It's for this thingamajigger. You know, I'm not going to do anything aggressive.
And I would never do that. I just want to say that for the record.
And I go, okay. And then the next step is like, Paul, you know, you can come in here, or I'm going to attack here, but I'm just going to get out, and then that's going to be okay.
Right. This is, by the way, this happens all the time on TF4.
And then I go, okay. And then number 3 is always number 3, where it goes, I'm taking this. I'm not going to do anything against you, but I'm taking this. And like it happened with Cassie, it happened with Jordan in those 3 steps where I'm going, okay, well, I've just given you 3 points. I've given you, the reason you're at 8 is because you've
Cannibalized you.
a little bit. And so here's the thing where, in my estimation, I go like, you have no choice. Like, you know, Ben is probably going to win. If you don't give me the thing that's effectively free, you're going to push his odds higher. You get to choose this. And, you know, and I'm going to say it, but here's the thing about I'm going to say it in a way that's going to make you feel it.
That's where the above game thing falls short for Paul, because if you really wanted to effectively do it, you would say, guys, I have a pitch. It's not going to sound nice, but please hear it out, because I think this is the best path forward for all of us. But, like, I need to get back in this game. I'm at 5 points, so if Jordan wins, if Ben wins, it's all a wash for me. I just want to get in contention. Here's what I think you should do. Each of you give me a points. It means that I won't be able to attack you guys. It means I'll be in the mix. I can be competitive. And it also is going to hobble Ben for this round. And I think it keeps us all in it. That's how you would pitch it. That's how you should pitch it.
Like 100%. But here's what I was like, I don't really think they have a choice. They've put me in this situation. They gave me all the power. And I go like, like, I think they have to give me 2 points. Otherwise, like, they are complicit in making Ben really likely to win. So I go like, hey, give me 2 points. Like, I did that with Dimitri yesterday.
That was great. You and Dimitri negotiating was really fun to watch.
And I don't think I was being a real jerk, but I was not making it easy for him. He goes,
yeah.
I go, here's my offer, Dimitri. I think it's fair. And he goes like, Paul, give me this. How about this for a counter? I go, nope.
Yep.
I go, nope. I think I'm giving you a fair thing. And, you know, and if you don't want it, you don't want it. It's okay. I'm in the lead anyway, blah, 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 blah. And then eventually he capitulates. Little did I know that he had a secret objective.
Yeah, he was being sneaky.
He was trying to sneak an extra point.
Yeah, he was being sneaky.
So he was playing the game, and you know, he was like, oh, well, you know, what I really need is blah, blah, blah. Like, anyway.
I think that Jordan, like, I think it was Jordan, John, and to some degree Josh. Josh had said that he would give you the point. But especially Jordan and John seemed to be the most vocally frustrated by you, and I can understand that frustration.
100%.
You know, and that's why when they're like that's why I was like I wouldn't do it because I could, but I fully understood your point of view, and I even said at the point I was like, oh, it's not something I would have said like guys do this because I don't know, I think it would have even occurred to me, but it made sense to me that why you did it. And as I looked at it, I was like, this makes sense. Paul is behind no matter what. He needs to do something big to get into the mix. But I think it's frustrating when you're playing well. Jordan was at 8 points. He was sort of stuck in a corner, but had generated 8 points. And so it felt like victory was so close. He was doing a good job, playing a good game. You can taste it. I think he said he had never won before. So then to have sort of the tempo of the game pulled out from under the rug, I would imagine I would be frustrated too. But that's a different issue.
Than being unethical?
So we've had some time on this now, and I am probably a little more sympathetic to Jordan now. It's that line to Paul's behaving unethically. That's where I think he's taken it a little too far. Having talked to you about it, Paul, now I think we've joked about it now here. It's like the way you should have done it if you actually wanted to do it, but you didn't.
I didn't. Nope.
And in fact, I think you wanted it to sting a little bit here. So I definitely have some sympathy for Jordan, where you both felt like you had microaggressions. I think he tried to make the case that there was some bad blood from earlier.
There was another thing you had done, by the way, earlier in the game that I think had contributed. Right or wrong, that's
the way he felt about it. And I understand the danger of games like this is that it feels like there can be stakes that are going to go outside the game. And we've seen from this conversation, that's absolutely 100% true. And so I'm sympathetic to the, I can't give in to terrorism argument, I'm not saying that's exactly what this was, but if it felt that way to Jordan with, I've been given this demand, and if I don't say yes, I'm going to burn it all down. That could feel like this extends beyond just this game where I can never make this deal. Right. I won't feel good about it myself personally, but also I'm inviting such behavior in the future. I have to say no, and so I'm sympathetic to that. And you do stuff to get a rise out of people.
I literally just said it.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So
yes. That being said,
I think you pushed him a little too hard.
Obviously, yeah. I know.
Okay,
but it was obviously the move itself. I think was a fair, and I think it was probably your best move at that moment because, like you needed that to happen to get to be in the mix because it didn't matter. You at 5 points, you were so far behind. You wouldn't have been. You had to play to win.
The analysis. I
think actually for me. In the whole thing that happened, I think on my end of what I think where the analysis has a blind spot is that yes, I was set up and I had a good situation and I looked to be like in a really good place to win, and I did win. Okay, so it did work out that way. The reason why I won was I had to thread a needle, and I think that to other people at the table it looked like I didn't have to thread a needle. I just had to do like play a card and I would just win. I actually had to do something. And I think what it required, and I think this is not a critique, but this is when you play a game, you start to realize like, oh, now I have to remember to look out for these things. If anyone looked at the public objectives that I could score, you could triangulate that with what my board state was, and you could realize, oh,
the vulnerability.
You could find my vulnerabilities and you could exploit them. And it was really up to the table to really try to get into Josh's head to say, Josh, you've got to attack. I had like 2 or 3 planets that had like one ship, one flag on them. If a single planet was taken away from me, I am scoring only 1 point, which means I'm only up to 8 points, which means the game goes on another round.
Was it the case though that like when this goes down though, is Jordan on tilt? after that? You know,
I
is
think
that part of it?
everyone- I
like
think
this thing had happened, and everyone's kind of a little bit,
I think so.
you know,
John
shocked after that.
And by
or
the way,
just- yeah.
John tried to
Stop
take
you.
away, but that was coincidental. He was trying to do something else. He was trying to achieve something else. He just barely failed. It was a die roll. If the die had rolled a different way, I would have lost control of the planet. And then all of a sudden, all my plans, huge domino effect for
Right.
me. The game goes on
it wasn't
another
the
round.
certainty that it felt like it was.
Exactly.
To Jordan.
So I butted up against the characterization that Paul was king making. I think for sure it appeared that I probably had an easier path, but just as Jordan was saying, "Look, I've scored all my hidden agendas. The only thing I can score left are these these objectives that are 2 points, 2 points, 2 points, and you can see I can't get those 2 points." And I think the takeaway when you're playing games like this is you have to look for those vulnerabilities, and just how Jordan wants us to see how he can't get those 2 points. You have to look at my board state and say, how can we deny Ben from getting that point? That's the takeaway. And it's not a criticism of like, I mentioned this on Discord, and it was not me saying like, oh, everyone played a shitty game. It was me just saying like, this is the cool part about the game is you have these takeaways. So it was obviously a very spicy ending to this game, but
to what you said, Trey, I understand why Jordan feels like I was terroristic, and I want to say this: I am capable of so much more. To me, I go like, this is a fair deal.
So it might have looked like you won this argument on Discord, and now you're like, no, I'm not going to take my win. Too many people are supporting me. I'm uncomfortable with this.
But
let me make it clear, I am the bad guy.
It's just
it was Agatha all along.
That's right. Thank you. That's right. But like, it's just one of those things where I look at this and I go like, oh no, the character, like, you're not seeing the actual problem.
Yeah.
The problem is like, there's a valuation difference between Jordan and I of the situation.
Yeah.
And if Jordan had a clearer vision, your vision, he still would have said no to me, and he would have gotten Josh to attack your one thing, and it would have been fine.
Right.
But because he evaluated incorrectly your position, he felt like I was so much.
Yeah. And by the way, me saying like, oh, he should have done this is total Monday morning quarterbacking, because I don't think I would have done that. I don't think I would have looked and like,
clarity might not have been
right.
there.
But it's like, this is something that I think a takeaway that for me too.
This is another reason like that I've stayed away from this game is that I am a hothead. Like this, it's just fantastic that this is a story about people other than me.
Yeah.
And it really is kind of like know my own limits of like, don't put yourself, hey, lit match, don't put yourself in the gasoline game.
Yeah.
You know,
that's why I wanted to like manage and maintain and temper expectations. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a good segue into talking about our topic of the day, which is like the enthusiasm you bring to the game table. It's not a total match, but it is about the emotional state you come into the game table with. And we've talked about like what should we bring to a game session. We've talked about that before, but really wanted to dive into the idea of like the enthusiasm that you have. And the reason why I thought about this, it stems out of this conversation about TI4, because someone on Discord said, wow, I would love to hear Ben's take on an ARCS campaign. And I was like, I have a weird reaction to that, because I really would like to try to play the campaign version of ARCS, because I played base game and I played like the next tier up, like the Legends and Lore or whatever, the asymmetrical abilities. I had a nice time playing both games. I had a fun time, but when the game ended, it
no magic for you.
It didn't capture my imagination.
Yeah.
It didn't stick with me. I was like, oh my God, but it was fun. And I know that people love ARCS.
Right.
Matt and Jordan especially are all in, and they're amongst many other people who are loving it. And I am like, I want to play the campaign. I am self-conscious of showing up and being kind of like meh about it, and being like, not having the right enthusiasm. I want to respect them as hosts, and I don't want to yuck on their yum. I want to have the right vibe, and I'm worried that I might
come short.
And it made me really wonder, like, what what is the role of enthusiasm with playing a game? Is it like mandatory that people come to a game and are enthusiastic about the game? Is it fair to expect that of people? Is that like, what do you think, Trey, in terms of the role of enthusiasm?
I think it's complicated. And I think what you laid out there is right. We suddenly become very aware of other people's expectations. It's just something I think about a lot because I feel like I've gotten feedback. Like it's teasing, but it's also feedback that I think some people feel like I'm too negative about certain games. And so, like what you just said, I definitely don't want to feel like my presence at the game is ever bringing down other people's experience. And so I'm trying to be conscious about that and kind of not necessarily articulate my every complaint about a game as I go. Right. So that's something I'm actively wrestling with. At the same time, I kind of want to defend my ability to
express yourself.
Well, just like I don't have to love everything. Also, right? Like it's great if you love this. It's okay for me to be not as excited. You know, like that's legit too. Like you don't want me putting on some performance of fake enthusiasm either. Like there's some genuineness there. And sometimes it's like, hey, like we all love this game. Let's get together people who are going to love this game.
Right.
And so I think that bar, like you legitimately have a higher bar than when you come. But when we're first exploring stuff, like I tried to hold my powder a little bit when we were playing Zoo Tycoon, where and like you probably sensed like I was a little struggling.
Yeah, but you were
whatever. But but like
you were good.
But like my criticism of the game, I kind of held until we were actually packing it up. You know, I think some of that's a little bit. I like to think I have like designer brain, which is it's hard for me to play a game and not look at the underlying system. We do that as a player anyways, where you're looking at the underlying systems, but I'm often being like, ooh, event deck, positive, negative. I kind of like know from experience is like, that's not going to work, you know, or like, that's not going to be something I'm going to like. And so like, I'm kind of quickly grokking and maybe unfair. And like, I'm not always right too. But like I came into, like, let's talk about like last night. I know like, hey, I'm not quite Tom Donnelly negative on Twilight Imperium, but I'm not exactly a fan or an advocate.
You haven't been champing at the bit to
I haven't drunk the Kool-Aid, and so I was happy.
Although
happy
last
to get the
week
invite.
It was his number one choice as far as games he was interested in.
I control.
Whatever, it still counted towards it being at the top of the list last week.
Sure, but it certainly I came into last night's game, you know, determined to kind of like not to be the problem and to accept the game on its own terms rather than what I want games to be and how this falls short, you know.
What do you think, Paul? What's that line between like sort of honoring how you genuinely feel about a game versus like trying to like be enthusiastic so that way like you're like a good partner at the table, social partner?
I think for me, like there are three sections. The first is like, here's a game that a lot of people are excited to play and you are wanting to join. On the other end is like, here is a game people are excited to play and they've asked you to join. And then new games like where no one, you know, like you don't know anything.
Nobody knows nothing.
Exactly. Yeah. So the simplest thing is like with the middle section, like you go like, well, people should be honest. I'm a person who believes people should be honest. And like, if you're friends, like, you know, this person may really love this game. This person may really not like them. You should have the space to go like, okay, well, we're finding out. Like, you know, and be cool about that. Like, you know, like, if, you know, there's probably some compression there where like, if you save, you know, your criticisms towards the end, like, so you can really experience it, you know, like that's probably valuable. But like, if something terrible happens, like, you know, in the middle of the game because it feels like it's broken, like you could express it. That happens all the time.
Yeah.
You know, and like I've been like Rise and Fall. Like, you know, I was not the first time we played. Jordan had locked me out, or was it someone had locked me out? I think it was Jordan. Like I was out. I was out like 4th round, and I know I could see like there is no way, because of the way this game is, there is no way for me to get back in. You know,
your legs have been chopped out from under you. There was no coming back in this race.
But it was important to go. But
now, by the way, Paul saying like I wanted it to sting. Now it all makes sense.
There's only one game, and that game is Game Night. Game Night has a long memory.
Is the infinite game?
That's right. That's the infinite game. That's right, Trey. But you know, you go in and you know, and you do this amazingly, Ben, where you go, okay, I'm out, but I'm going to find the move that's going to make this interesting. I'm going to play the game and try to pull the levers. So either I do something interesting in this game. I might not win, but I'll do interesting, or I'll learn something.
Yeah, you're better prepared for the next.
I mean,
one.
And so,
but I think I don't. Unfortunately, I think a shortcoming for me is that yes, I will do that. I will do that usually in a game that I'm interested in. So if I'm like, oh, I'm losing this game, I'm failing, but let me see what I can do. But if it's a game I'm like,
maybe because we remember when we played Western Empires and you got legs chopped off by.
Tom Donnelly.
Oh, that person. That's right.
Tom Donnelly. He doesn't deserve to be targeted whatsoever in TI4, but he certainly cut me off with the knees. That I don't hold a grudge. It's only been 2 years.
But like,
and that was a newbie game too. Hey, welcome newbie. Let me show you what a punch in the face is.
Here's my fist. But like, if you remember correctly, like you spent a lot of time stewing, and then all of a sudden, at the very end of the game, when we wrapped up, you had like bled into his territory. You went up. I
did.
Like you spent, you were in it.
And I actually, by the way, for people, I think people might who care about this saga, I did text Tom. This entire TI4 saga actually really made me reflect, and this topic made me reflect about my own contributions to that situation. And I think that I did not go into Western Empires with enthusiasm. I went in saying like, I'm going to have to play this at some point. I know this will make Tom happy, so I'll play it. I don't think I was enthusiastic. I think that impacted the way I received that blow from Tom, where I was like, I don't even want to play this game. And now you're giving me, you're like hurting me. And I'm like, I'm brand new at it. And I think that like swirled into an emotional reaction that I had. And I actually texted Tom and you, and I said, I think I'm ready to play that game again. Because I think I've talked enough about aggression in games since then with 18xx and TI4 and this and that, where I think I have actually, I'm hoping that I've done enough of the work to realize these are just, there's ups and downs, these games, and just look at it all as fun, as humor and entertainment. And when it happens to you, shrug, laugh, and know you'll get them back. And I'm hoping that I am going to be in that space. But it made me realize, like, I contributed to my unhappiness in that game because I don't think I brought in enthusiasm.
Which comes down to the second or whatever, where he goes, people want you to play the game. They're asking you to play the game. And what are you obligated to play? And I think the person who's asking you to play, they have to be okay with you not giving like max enthusiasm. They're asking you, like, you know, not everyone wanted to play that Western Empires game, like, you know, but Tom I really want to play this, and you get a range of that. Your responsibility is like, you should bring enough that you're not a jerk. You know, like it's just you come in like, oh, I'm open enough to play this game. I'm gonna submit to the experience. I don't have to like be smiling all day because like I don't want to play this game natively. I'm doing this as a mitzvah for my friend.
Yeah, but then at the same time, if you're doing a mitzvah, you should like, you know, obviously if they're desperate and like, please play with me, I feel like they don't get to play it, and you should actually have for them. You should bring like, I want to do this for them. I want to make this great for them. Like, and that's where I think I did fail on Western Empires on that front, and various other games. I think last year we played Coffee Traders one night, and I didn't want to play it, and I really had a shitty attitude, and I felt. I continue to feel so guilty about that because it was just like peak immaturity, and like it's like you're with your friends and you're playing a game that you actually do like. It's just not the game you want to play that night. Get over it, you know.
Sure, but you don't have a responsibility to be perfect.
No,
every night. And I think this does relate to, like, we've talked about this a decent bit of the. Sometimes you take one for the team, like especially when we're like divvying up players. What are you gonna do? Suddenly you're sitting down on a game that was kind of like you were just okay about about
And you know,
playing.
there's gonna be like a lot of AP,
and I think
yada,
you're
yada.
recognizing like, hey, I don't like to be in this situation, but I'm here now, and so I need to kind of get it up a little bit to play it. And I think it's good that we're addressing this, because I think the responsible thing somewhat is, let me not put myself in that situation. Sometimes it's like,
Right.
if I can't muster this certain threshold of enthusiasm, then I really shouldn't say yes, or I shouldn't show up, or something like that. But as a group, we're dealing with this dynamic of, that's also like how we start to lose people from the group, is kind of like, I'm guessing some people are feeling like, I really want to get to the more serious game. How do I have to be enthusiastic about 90 minutes of Avalon? Like, that's not for everybody.
No.
Like, and it's kind of unfair that we're putting people in that situation sometimes.
Right.
You know, if we're playing, yes, you need to get it up enough so that we're going to have a good game. We can't have one person just tank Avalon for everybody. Right. But let's also not make that a hurdle that has to be overcome for every game night.
Yeah, and it's tricky with games. Like, there are certain games that are growers and they're not showers. And
Zoo Tycoon.
For instance, Zoo Tycoon, a great undiscovered gem.
I'm shaking my head.
But there are certain games that do require like multiple plays, and they start to bloom and everything. And I think Arcs is a really good example of, like, it didn't jump off the page for me the first time, but I'm like, maybe with several plays it would, maybe it wouldn't. I won't know unless I play it more. But then there are people who already just like love it, so I would be kind of like the kid brother who's like, well, Ben wants to learn the game, and I would feel like I'm like, I understand what it's like to love a game and you only want to play it with people who love it at the same level as you. And so then how do you navigate that? How do you navigate, like, you have to find like a group of like, or you just say, well, sometimes you just wave goodbye to the ship.
Sometimes you don't get to play that game with those people.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, like, I think there's a lot of maturity that needs to, like, I think the hardest thing is like when people are really excited about a game and then you want to play with them, but you don't want to necessarily play the game. I think that's the most dangerous.
That's hard.
Because
Do we call that to Dimitri?
well, it is this aspect where sometimes like you go, oh, like you're in need of, like, I haven't seen Ben in a while. I haven't seen Matt in a while. I haven't seen whoever.
Or we just know the dynamic is really fun when we get together with certain like combos.
Like, for example, like I don't get to play with Candace a lot. When she comes to the game night, I want to play with Candace.
Right.
Sometimes she brings games that I go like, oh, it's not exactly what I want to play, but like I'm delighting in playing with Candace. And I think the real important thing is like I was told this a while from the parents, where basically you have to really be able to delight in what your kid delights in. That's one of the keys of creating connection. Like, you're not going to really want to watch like Blue's Clues or Bluey or whatever, like,
Speak for yourself.
Yeah. Like, you may not want to, all the fucking time. And like, and they're going to want to watch it on repeat, but you do better if you can muster the delight in that they're having delight.
I mean, that sort of always comes down to empathy and compassion.
100%.
Right?
And so here's this game that, like, for all of it, like, may or may not float your boat. Like, if not to bring it up again, but like, if I was on a table with Arc Nova, I would bring it up for the sake of the table. That's my response. I can tell you right now, there will never be a time where I pick Arc Nova. I think the same way now is with Tribune. There's never a time where I go like, oh, I feel like I've played this enough. Like, I know exactly what it is. You know what? Here's the hard one. Concordia. I know both of you love Concordia.
Number one game.
And if I were to sit down,
Yeah, I know what you mean. I've played that enough.
yeah, Concordia.
Only reason I'm playing Concordia now is because I want to introduce it to other people.
Oh, okay. Sure.
Well, there's still. There's all these different maps and everything. So they're always giving stuff that you can find new wrinkles to it.
But I understand. I relate to what you were saying.
But
Paul also just doesn't love Concordia.
But I respect the game. I know what it is. Like, I see why people like it. It's not something that I particularly love to play. But like, if I'm at a game night and 3 people really want to play Concordia, and I would, I go like, hey, yeah, sure.
It's a good distinction you made there between it's like, okay, Concordia, we're going to play in Concordia, like that's a certain threshold. And I think you also identified this, like, if we found ourselves at Matt and you're suddenly playing ARCs with Jordan and Matt, you got to elevate it.
Yeah,
right. I certainly would. I would be like very aware I cannot be the stinker in the toilet bowl.
Yeah, I tried to bite my tongue on the last game I played with them in the times when I was like, okay, whatever. I tried to just be like chill and happy. It probably came through. And this is not, by the way, this is not a referendum on playing ARCs with Jordan and Matt. That was just an example because
it's just that they love it.
They love it. And I get it because I have certain games that I love so much that I'm like, I don't want to play this with someone who might bring in the gloom, who might actually, like, some games I have a rose colored glasses with.
Right.
And like it can do no wrong, and I almost don't want someone who could pop my bubble, and so I get that, and I almost feel like for me when I'm hosting a game, like I don't love it when someone is like being a downer, and that's why I always feel bad when I'm the downer because I know how much I dislike it when someone else is the downer. But what I have also come to discover is that like there's certain games that like there's like a window of like I've been researching it, I've been following it, it's new, I just got it, I want to be in my honeymoon phase and I want to enjoy it, and I only want people who have total buy-in and who are down for it, and even if they don't love it, they're enthusiastic. But then you get enough plays in that I become oddly secure in maybe my stance with it, that like if someone doesn't love it, it's fine with me. Like, you don't actually have to have the enthusiasm. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah.
It's like you have like a precious era with the game, and then eventually you're like, well, I love this game. So if someone doesn't like it, well, that's too bad. But like, I get it. Not everyone has to love everything.
There's probably not a lot of those games on your list.
Of games where if I played
that you're so secure on it that
if I played Hansa Teutonica with someone and they didn't love it, I'd be like, oh, okay.
Yeah. I right.
Or even Concordia.
I'm playing Agricola with someone and I mean, I would love it if they loved it.
Because I think at that point, I've gotten enough reps in. And I feel like maybe in the early times, I think what gets swirled into this, I think this is why board gaming is actually such a complicated emotional hobby, is you want to play a game. If you really like a game, you want to play it. If you want to play it, you're going to need other people to play with. And if someone's unenthusiastic, it can be a little toxic at the table. It can spread to other people. It can even spread to you. It just means that it could mean that it's harder for this game to get to the table again. And therefore, like this thing I was excited about, now I might not get to play it anymore. And so maybe part of like, I want people to be as excited as me is not just because I want to have that fun vibe at the table, but it also impacts my ability to play this game over and over again.
Whereas get it to the table.
But with Hansa Teutonica, I've played it 1,000,000 times. So it's,
Well, that's how I felt with Indonesia and Age of Innovation.
Really?
In the sense that like there was a time where I really wanted to play Age of Innovation and I would twist people's arms to play.
Yeah, I was weirdly down on it at first, and I've come around.
Yeah. But ultimately what happens, like when people played it, I was just grateful. And they would fluctuate in their enthusiasm. Like, and I think it is always this idea of like taking the temperature of the vibe. Like, you know what you want. Like if you're getting what you want, have some space. If you're giving, if you're doing the mitzvah, like give enough that it doesn't cut into your bone, but like, don't withhold,
Right.
It's just social awareness.
Now, I mean, when I had texted out about doing this subject, there was a response that was like, but there's the flip side too of like, what are the repercussions if you actually don't show enthusiasm? Like what is the downside of that?
Well,
do you think there should be repercussions on someone who's not being enthusiastic?
I don't think that there should be any actions, but I think there are consequences, whether they're intended or not. This happens enough, and you don't get invited. That's the extreme version. But it's suddenly like
I don't think it's the extreme version. I think I don't.
Yeah,
because I think
you can get.
I think
there,
it's actually a pretty common thing. I think that if you're not enthusiastic enough, or it happens a lot, then people are like, well, I could invite them, but let me see if there's someone else I can invite first. It's not like it's not like they're disinvited,
right?
But they drop down the priority. I can always tell when I've been like
they
a
fall
sad
far
sack.
enough down that the game night will not happen before you reach that depth of the list.
Yeah, I think that could happen. I can always tell when I'm like, oh shit, I need to fix my attitude, because I can always tell I'm like, people need a little bit of a break from me, and like, so I think that is something that happens. Like you fall out of favor.
I felt that way too, where I'm kind of like, you know what, I need to do a better job of being a pleasant gamer. And I think a pleasant gamer to be with.
I think the takeaway is that you should be introspective. Like I don't take it personally. I'm like, oh yeah, I should probably buck up a little bit.
I think there are two factors. There's enthusiasm and competency. I think those are two factors that move you up and down the list. Like if you're really not great at a game, no matter how enthusiastic you are, like if you want to play a really hard game, people aren't going to invite you. And if you are really good and you are a stick in the mud, people aren't going to invite you.
Great either.
Yeah, so it's you really like either you do your homework or check your attitude or both. That's what it comes down to. Like I always think this is simple because people I don't want to be this way about it because it sounds for the unethical gamer. I think people like playing with me. and I think ultimately because like I respect the board. I go like here's people, they're putting in their time. Like my personal feelings aside, like I'm a big boy. I'm not gonna get mad at someone if they're a little glum, and I'm not gonna spoil their thing if they're excited and I'm not. It's really, I don't want to say it, it's just maturity, right? Know what your group wants, and I know. Here's the thing: I know it can be hard. It can be hard.
Yeah, right. This isn't right.
Yeah.
They're probably this is going to be difficult.
Yeah.
I think like even something that's adjacent to this is, I think Jordan played Windmill Valley. And I think Matt didn't. Neither of them were that enthusiastic about it.
Jordan said he liked it more than he was expecting, but I don't think this is not his type. I don't think it's a game that he gravitates to.
Right, but
given that he can play Rise and Fall instead.
I was frustrated with Matt. I was like, why won't you even give this damn game a chance? You know what I mean? And it's like he'd opted out, which is totally legitimate. And I'm like, you're prematurely opting out. of like, this game might surprise you. What's wrong with you? Have some. Like, it was a weird reversal.
Right, but I mean, there is something to be said too about understanding, like knowing what is going to thrill you and what's not going to thrill you. Like Jordan and Matt are on a mini kick right now, painting minis, and they're playing kill
a lot of Warhammer
things. And if they were like, you want to try this out, like the part of me that's like, I want to be an enthusiast, I want to try everything, would be like, yes, and I get to be included. But then I think you have to also be realistic. Like, I don't think this is really my type of game.
The tactical,
you never know. But you never know. But then I would also feel really self-conscious about like they're so excited about that, and I wouldn't want to be like,
right. You feel an obligation to match, and that can be hard sometimes.
Yeah, it could be hard. So I think that maybe Matt not playing Windmill Valley, maybe that was him being like
knowing himself.
Yeah, I understand exactly what I'm interested in right now, and this is not what I'm interested in.
Yeah,
like
even though it's super fun.
There's a saying that I realize, I live by. It goes, assume benevolence. Like assume like if people are being a certain way
with you, we should assume benevolence.
No one. For me, it's like assume malevolence. Okay, but like if things aren't feeling right, like people are having a hard time, and you just give people grace.
By the way, I also have to say, I think there's something to be said about like I can get my enthusiasm up a lot if I'm just really excited to see to play with that person. Which is sort of what you were saying before. Yeah. And it almost implies that like if I'm not enthusiastic, I don't want to play with you. And that's actually that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying like a few weeks ago, I played a game called Unsettled with Candace. I knew nothing about the game. It was a co-op game.
You love co-ops.
I do. I like co-ops. But I was not a game I was inherently excited about. It's not the game I wanted to play that night even, but I have so much fun playing with Candace. She creates such a inviting space. I was like,
her
I
enthusiasm
haven't
is
played with her,
contagious.
and I haven't played with her in a while. I was like, I just want to. Yeah, you're right. Her enthusiasm is so contagious that I was like, I'm just gonna play, and I had a very nice time with it. I think she liked the game way more than I did, but I was like, yeah, but it's fun. I had a nice time with it, and I think that sometimes the human component can
100%.
do it, and that sounds the reading between the lines does make it sound like oh well, Candace is super fun to play with, so I'm enthusiastic with her, but like I don't know, playing with Trey sometimes.
Debbie Downer.
Right. That's not that. It's not a binary like that. It just means that like
there are different factors, right?
They're different thing. They're different elements too. And sometimes also, I'm not gonna lie, I might be less enthusiastic to play a game if I feel like I've been trying to get a game to the table and it's not coming to the table, but we're getting someone else's game to the table, or we're playing a game that they played their fourth time, and I've got a new game I'm excited about, because then I get subsumed with an idea of like a lack of equality or justice or in this thing. So that can impact it too. It's also frustrating for me when I feel like I'm trying to generate enthusiasm for the games that someone else really enjoys, and I'm trying to be there and be like, okay, I'm going to be enthusiastic. They're excited about it. I'm going to try to be enthusiastic. And then when I'm like, okay, and now here's a game I'm excited about, and they're like, yeah, no, that's just, I don't want to play that. And you're like, but I generated enthusiasm for you. Like, why can't you do it for me? So that's hard. It's a very complicated thing. But I think in all those situations, those are my issues, and it's up to me to push through them and just have fun and be present.
I mean, you're always presenting, not you specifically. We're always presenting. Like you're presenting your persona, right? And so, like, if your persona is one like Candace, for example, it's always fun, it's always present, and it's always engaged. Like all three of those things, like you just want to play with her, like just because, like I there's a scarcity aspect to it, which she cultivates. Just kidding, Candace. But there's also that aspect where like I know the moment I sit down with her, it's going to be smooth. I'm not going to have any emotional bumps.
Yeah, it's always going to be a nice time.
And she presents that, like and we all present our thing, And
we should all be more like Candace. It's true.
We really should.
For games,
yeah. Honestly, we really
agree.
Should.
I agree.
I don't think I can.
Yeah.
I mean, there's part of me that's like, if we all were just like always
more
enthusiastic
like
all the
Candace.
time, I think we would. Yeah. I think we would just always.
We
would kind of like feed. We might feed off of each other's enthusiasm more.
Maybe. Yeah.
Like for me, like if you're gonna play with me, you're probably going to expect a little spicy. You're a little elbow or something. I'm a little more blood sport than most in our group.
We've got space for one Paul.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Only because you're deeply unethical.
Only because that's my moral failing, and
Yeah.
But like everyone has their own personality, and so this is where I also go like, don't change who you are.
Right.
Your authentic self is why you're probably in your group. Just be able to attenuate it if the time needs to be. It comes back to what you said, Trey. You want to be like, you don't want to have to like pretend to be something that you're not. Right?
You're not gonna be able to do it.
Yeah. And so like, but at the same time, like, I mean, here's the real rough, hard fact. Like, if you're doing that, you're probably in the wrong group.
I think what's important with enthusiasm, I think if you're not feeling enthusiastic about something, it's for complicated things.
Mm-hmm.
It could be the sort of games you like. It could be the larger context of the games you've been playing with those people. It could be about what your stamina for that day. It could be a million different things, but whatever it is, there's stuff on your end. And I think one thing that makes me more enthusiastic is if the host of that game actually shows care towards me, because there's also an element of like, I'll be enthusiastic, which means that I am putting energy into stepping out of my emotional state to try to sort of be better for the table and for the host. And I think when the host is then in return
you're being
doing
seen.
Sort of certain things that signal care, or
so you're seen.
I think it helps a lot. I think that's where Candace is actually super strong. I think that's why her enthusiasm being contagious is actually more that she somehow is able to say, like, she's able to bring a vibe of like, I think you will enjoy this
Like,
game, and I think you will enjoy it. As opposed to what I think sometimes maybe I fall into is, I want to play this game. Will you play this game with me?
Mm-hmm. Should we name this episode like, how do you more like Candace?
Candace is the best.
That's right. Why Candace? Why you should be more like Candace?
Why are we such jerks and so moody all the time? We could call it that. Anyway, just some food for thought. Yeah. So I think that's. I'm very enthusiastic about this episode, though. It was fun. I think that's it. Do you have any other comments on this, Trey?
I mean, this has been an episode where we talk a lot about dynamics in our group, and I don't want to pat people on the back, but I think like we do have this kind of like running dialogue in Discord and with the communities that people like know our group now. The personalities maybe have emerged, and these are all things that different groups are dealing with, and like that's why we talk about them. I don't think we would be kind of like airing our dirty laundry if it wasn't actually like we're actually hopefully communicating stuff that all gaming groups are kind of dealing with. This topic relates to it, but it's also like
we're not trying to put people on.
We're not
blast.
settling scores with over behavior in games here. It's
we're
kind
not
of
just
like,
settling scores.
Sorry, speaking for myself here, but yeah, everything's going to be okay with our group, and I kind of appreciate that Paul and Jordan are kind of like allowed them to be the punching bags in this to kind of bring this stuff out.
Yeah, exactly, and many others, and then I'm trying to make myself a punching bag to indicate that like I'm not saying like I'm being aggressive. Like I am my own like you could be worst enemy in this.
I'm hearing myself in a lot of the stuff you're saying too. Like I'm dealing with those same issues and wanting to be more like Candace, as we all should.
We all need to be like Candace. Okay, well, I think that's No, I feel emotionally. I feel like I've been through a ringer. This is so emotional. Anyway, you've been listening to Game Brain, produced and edited by Matthew Robinson, Trey Alsop, Ben Mandelker, and Tom Donnelly. Special thanks to Daedalus for our incredible music. More on Daedalus at GameBrainPod.com. And thanks to Edamar Peleg for our incredible graphics. Be sure to check him out at Instagram on @Kerboloni or on his website, kerboloni.com. You can reach us by email at contact@GameBrainPod.com. Thanks for listening, and go play some games with friends enthusiastically, or make some friends with games less enthusiastically.